Would you like to learn how to set in sleeves? I have 2 sleeves here that I need to set in to the armholes of the dress that I'm making. I'm going to show you how to do that. So I've already prepared my sleeves. I've done the sleeve seam and I've hemmed them. So just ready to pop into the dress now. We need to run 2 rows of gathering stitches over the head of the sleeve. And we do that between the notches. So I've got a double notch here, which will be the back of the sleeve. I always mark the centre to go on the seam. And there's the single notch. So we're going to do a double row of gathering stitches on the longest stitch length on the machine. So I'm going to set my stitches to the longest one on my machine, which is 5. I've got 2 threads, the bottom thread and the top thread coming out of the machine. I've already done 1 row. I've done it quite close to the edge, but not quite on the edge, maybe sort of a foot's width there. And this next row, I'm going to do just next to it, but not quite to the 5/8 of an inch. So we'll start sewing around. And obviously we don't back stitch to start, because we need to be pulling on these threads shortly. And when you get to a bend, you might find it easier to lift the foot up a little bit and down. And we'll go all the way around, stopping at the next notches. Then lift the foot up and make sure I leave some tails. I have one of my sleeves here, and there's the double row of gathering stitches all around the top there. I'm looking at this and there's the double notch, which shows me it's the back. I've got my dress, this is the front, this is the back, and I'm just matching up that if the sleeve went in there, there's the double notches on my dress to match the double notches on the sleeve. So this is the way I need to pin it in. So what I'll first do is I'll get the underarm sleeve of the dress and the sleeve seam, and I'll pop those together, and I'll make sure that they're straight on top of each other, and I'll pop 2 pins in either side. So that's those in place. And then what I do is I'll put the sleeve inside. So I've got my sleeve on the inside, and this is the dress, but the sleeve and the dress are right sides together. I'm looking at these 2 notches here. There's my double notch on the dress and the double notch on the sleeve. There we go. And pop a pin in there. And then I can pin this section here. You'll normally find the sleeve is a little bit bigger than the dress, and that's just to give you a bit of ease. So if I sort of stretch them together a little bit, that'll even that gap up. So I can put some pins in here, like so. That's all fitting okay. I'll do the same on the other side. So this will be the front. I'm looking for the notch on the dress, which is here, and the notch on my sleeve. I can put the notch to the notch and pop a pin in there. And the same thing, there's a bit more sleeve than dress. Gradually putting pins in to get that bit of extra fabric eased into position. More pins is better than 2 little pins. So now I've found the shoulder seam of the dress, and this notch here is the top of the sleeve, so I can match those up together and pin that in place. So now I've got my dress, I've got all this fullness of the sleeve here to fit in, and the same on the other side. So what I do is these gathering threads on the front here, which is the bottom thread from when I stitched it, I will gradually pull those and create some gathers. not too gathered. What we're wanting to do is just make this sleeve a little bit smaller to fit into the armhole of the dress. And every now and then I'll check to see how it's fitting. Need a little bit more. So we don't really want gathers on the sleeve. It's not that style of sleeve. This one is a set-in sleeve. So I've ruched this up a little bit, and now I can see that that fits a lot better into there. So same thing as I did before, I will gradually pin it in place, thinking that looks about the centre there. Stick a pin in there. I'm always putting the pins facing down because that'll make it easier when I get to the sewing machine for taking them out. Sometimes if you've got a gather, it can be easier just to use your pin to sort of separate that out. So this side is all pinned in. The sleeve fabric is evenly distributed over the dress. So it's the same process on these threads here to bring this fabric up so it'll fit, all being well, nice and smoothly into my armhole. I don't want any puckers, but I do need to make this bit of fabric a bit smaller to fit. Something I sometimes do, I've pulled on these threads and it's kind of fitting okay, but I need to distribute the gathers to keep this level of pull on there. What I sometimes do is do a little figure of 8 around this first pin I've got there, just to secure that in place so it's not going to undo while I'm playing around with it. So my sleeve is pinned in and there's lots of pins, but I'll gradually take those out as I go along, and it's not a rush to sew a sleeve in, so I'll take my time. I'm going to sew my sleeve in with the pins on the underside. It's quite a tight hole here, it won't fit around my machine, so I'm going to pull off this section. Your machine will have a similar facility, I'm sure. Just makes the machine a bit thinner, but now my sleeve will fit in there. So I'm popping my sleeve over the arm of the machine. I always like to start sewing at the seam and work my way around. And then I shall gradually sew my way around, pulling the pins out as I go. So I'm gradually making my way around. It's been a bit of a tight armhole, a bit fiddly, but I'm getting there. And then I'll go over the stitches I did at the start. Now take this to the ironing board and press the seam towards the sleeve. I've got a ham that I made a long time ago, and I'm just using that to help me smooth the armhole over that when I press it. So my sleeve is in. Now I've got the next one to put in.